Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the problem with Rebel HQ, which is a left-wing political channel on YouTube, okay? When it comes to their ideology, okay? So now that I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the problem with Rebel HQ, what exactly is the problem with Rebel HQ, okay? The problem with Rebel HQ is simply at its fundamental core is their ideology when it comes to capitalism. You know, capitalism is evil and this and that, and communism / socialism, whatnot, is going to save us, okay? But the truth of the matter, when it comes to that way of thinking, capitalism in itself is not evil, okay? All of this is a fundamental system that relies on money to determine growth at its fundamental core, okay? That's all capitalism really is, you know? At its fundamental core, okay? You know, selling things and so on and so forth in order to go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, okay? That's all capitalism is at its fundamental core, okay, to be quite honest with you, okay? So the truth of the matter is, when it comes to capitalism being evil, when it comes to all the complaints people have, you know, about all the greed and corruption in the government and so on and so forth, that has literally nothing to do with capitalism as a fundamental core. Those are just simply different variables that are just simply a byproduct of it, which if you had good people in the government, you know, that of course were not able to, of course, screw things up, conservatives, you know, like, yes, I went there. But yeah, anyway, you get back to what I'm saying, you know, like people in the government who didn't screw up things, we could obviously prevent all these things from happening, you know, whether it could be holding, you know, companies that are in Amazon, you know, and are using outdated machines and stuff in order to extract minerals and so on and so forth, that destroys the environment and so on and so forth. Or it could be, you know, the amount of government corruption that's going on, people still stealing money and not investing it in projects that they should, and so on and so forth. All those things, if you simply had people in the government who actually put time and effort into dealing with those type of issues, for crying out loud, you know, you would simply, common sense would indicate, no surprise, we wouldn't have those problems whatsoever. You know, that's simply it in the end of the day. If you had those problems resolved, you know, then there would not be a problem with capitalism as a whole, you know, and that's exactly what I'm trying to get across here, if anything, you know, to be quite honest with you, okay? And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. So it's not capitalism as a whole. Limiting capitalism is a fundamental flawed way of thinking, okay? You know, because at its fundamental core, it's just simply a fundamental system. That's all it is. You know, a fundamental system that's determined on money to determine growth. That's all it is. It's not anything more or less than that. That's all it is. So it just comes down to how well things are organized when it comes to that specific system is exactly what matters most, okay? So that's the first thing I wanted to get across. And the second thing I want to get across, aside from that point, okay, is the problem I have with all these left-wingers saying, you know, oh, capitalism is evil, capitalism is devil, and all that type of stuff, though, to be quite honest with you, you know, is that when it comes to that particular issue, for that matter, okay, all you're doing is simply, in a sense, okay, for that matter, not only hurting intellectuals or hurting minorities, but in a sense, holding minorities you know, captive in a sense. Because the truth of the matter is, us minorities, Latinos, blacks, whatever, but of course specifically blacks, no surprise whatsoever, you know, we rely on the left wing to help us. We rely on the left wing to serve us information, as well as protect us from racist laws from the right wing. But the truth of the matter is, when you do things like this, it just simply encourages people to, of course, you know, minorities included, not really want to support the left wing, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, When it comes to a system, capitalism works. Okay, it works efficiently. The truth of the matter is that the problem is just simply, as I was getting at before, just simply how it's maintained. That's all you have to simply say. Blaming capitalism as a whole makes no freaking sense. In all honesty, to be quite blunt and honest with you, okay, for that matter, okay? So the truth of the matter is capitalism as a whole is not the problem, okay? Besides, look at all the times we've implemented as a species different systems like communism, particularly communism, of course, you know, and even socialism, authentic socialism, not fake socialism, but real authentic socialism. And look at how all the nations that have done it and how they all turn out. They all turn out crappy. There's more than enough stories in Latin America to go on for God knows how long, if you describe it in exact detail about communism failing. It doesn't work. That's a simple answer to the question. It doesn't work. Okay? History has shown communism/socialism does not work. Okay? So the truth of the matter is to try to encourage a system that simply hasn't really worked ever for that matter, and try to be a beacon of protection for minorities is just simply hurting the minorities you're supposed to protect in the end of the day, okay? Besides, in the end of the day, the more you guys say this stuff, okay, the more it's going to turn off mainstream America, because mainstream America does not like communism and socialism. And there's a huge history behind that. The simple truth of the matter is that communism is never going to be sellable to Americans. Okay, it hasn't ever worked. Uh, you know, and it never will work. Okay, or socialism is what they like to call it. Okay, for that matter. Okay, it won't be sellable to the mainstream American public. We've seen it numerous times before, and it just doesn't work. It's not sellable to the mainstream American public. It hasn't been and never will be, for that matter, okay? So the more you do that, the more it just turns people off and just join a side like the right wing that has made it clear that they don't like black people, let alone minorities for that matter, okay? And becoming more powerful. It just helps the right wing become more powerful. So the simple truth of the matter okay, is that simply put it, capitalism is not a bad thing. And this is the problem I have with Rebel HQ and a lot of left-wing commentators is this whole capitalism is evil and this and that, instead of actually maybe putting that time and effort into focusing on things like maybe it could just simply we need to develop better anti-corruption methods is what they should be focusing on, instead of making it come off as some revolution. Oh, screw capitalism, let's implement socialism/communism, and then we just end up like everything as a species, always just finding a way to fuck everything up. So the simple truth of the matter is, this is the problem I have with Rebel HQ, is this whole capitalism is evil mentality. So anyway, this is my video. All I have to say is that I hope you enjoyed it and found it entertaining. And just remember, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumb this video up and hit the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say. And simply put on out. So bye.